Hello everybody. Dear Lord. Hello everybody, this is Epictoxy back with another video. It has been almost a year now since my last video, but that is for a good reason, because the reason why I haven't been making any videos is because I've been working on this really big project that has taken about a year, mainly just because I haven't been working on it. But I really wanted to get it done before G-Fest around this time, but at this point it's just sort of a big workload that isn't going to happen very soon, but it will hopefully be relatively soon after G-Fest. And I've been really wanting to make a video since the start of this year, just really wanting to make some kind of content for you guys, because I really do enjoy making videos, and I've been making a lot of videos on my MMA channel, which is a bit different. So that was sort of taking a lot of my attention towards the beginning of this year. But as we come closer to G-Fest, getting more invested here. So today we're gonna be doing something kind of special. We're gonna be doing a top 20 or so Bandai Godzilla figures. I guess it's Bandai vinyls because that's just what I felt like doing, and I was inspired to make this video by my friend GojiBoy75, who just did his top 10 Sofubi figures, and that was a really great video. I'm going to be doing the same thing here basically. I'm copying his idea, but I'm doing Bandai vinyls, and this is going to be a pretty meaty video because we got 20 figures to talk about, mainly because I just couldn't decide on only 10 figures to talk about. And yeah, so the top 20 to 11 will not be in any particular order, but the top 10 will be in order. So I'm just going to pull out figures and we're going to just start talking about them. So to start this off at number 20, I have the Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla 2002, the 8-inch one. You can see from my collection, maybe you could notice stuff that's missing that I might have pulled off to make this video, but this is one of those figures. He goes right here, and this is just one of my favorite Godzillas in the collection. Like, this is just a great looking Godzilla. A lot of people would cite this as probably the perfect Bandai Godzilla, maybe the perfect Godzilla 2002 figure, and I would agree. This is really a great figure. There's nothing really like to complain about it. Like, it's just a really solid figure. And yeah, the 8-inch Godzillas from Bandai have always been phenomenal. This one, the GMK, the 03 is a bit of a runt of the line, and you'll see maybe 04 later down the list. But this figure is really awesome. It's just me personally, I don't care too much for this figure specifically. Like, I just kind of like other figures just a bit more, but this one is great. So yeah, number 20, the Bandai Godzilla 2002. At number 19, we have the Bandai Movie Monster Series Minya 2004 from Godzilla Final Wars. I guess I should have said that the 2002 was from Tokyo S. I guess I should have said that the Godzilla 2002 was from Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. This guy is really cool, and this was one of the figures that I was trying to hunt down at G-Fest last year, and I ended up getting it pretty much directly after G-Fest, and this figure is just really awesome. It's just like a really nice looking figure. He's just kind of soft, and he's kind of squishy. Like, this figure is really cool. It's part of the original 2004 wave, so it has softer vinyl, but this is one of my favorites. Obviously, this figure is also associated with Monster Island Buddies, which is kind of funny. This is the figure that represents Manila throughout most of that show. Daddy! Beat it! And yeah, this figure's just really cool. It's just like a nice little guy. He's just pretty cool, dude. So yeah, that's number 19.
So, do you like video games?
You're not my real daddy!
God damn it, how do I get through to you?
Alright, for number 18, I'm just going to get rid of the Final Wars figures now. This is the Bandai Movie Monster Series Mothra 2004, the Fire Mothra. And this is actually not a theater exclusive figure. This is just a normal release, which is kind of interesting because, you know, you think, oh, it's translucent, it's going to be some kind of exclusive, but it's actually not. And I just thought that was really interesting. I don't know, this is kind of weird because, like, typically when you see anything that is predominantly translucent in the Godzilla line, it's some kind of exclusive, whether it be a theater exclusive, an event exclusive, you know, something along those lines. But this is just a normal release, and I think that's really cool. I've always thought that this sculpt is really cool, and in my personal opinion, I think this is probably the best Mothra figure from Bandai. This is my personal favorite. It's just so cool. I don't know, there's something so special about this sculpt to me, and it's just kind of the perfect Mothra vinyl, and I really like it. I have it on a stand on my shelf. Cool. I just love the Fire Mothra concept also. It's just kind of like a random thing to make, you know, because they already did make the original colors for this figure for Tokyo SOS, so this is a reuse of that sculpt. So yeah, Fire Mothra. Alright, so this is a bit of a newer figure, and this is probably the only figure that's like post 2014 on this list, and that is the Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla 1989 with Super X2. I'm counting this as one figure. I just remember when this figure came out, this like almost reinvigorated my enjoyment for Godzilla figures. This thing is just so special. Even though it is mostly a retool of the Godzilla 1991 that we got like 4 years ago, 5 years ago now. I don't know, there's something so special about this figure to me, and this figure just kind of feels like something we would have gotten in the 50th anniversary memorial box if we got unique sculpts for the Heisei Godzillas, which mainly in that set we got Showa Godzillas. I think it would have been really cool to see something like this. Yeah, the Super X coming with this figure was pretty awesome. Like, it's not something Bandai really ever does, and now it's sort of becoming the norm because we have these two Mothra larva twins, and they're making more sort of 2-pack sets. Not necessarily like the standard release like this and that, but eventually I hope that we'll get more stuff like that. And this figure is just, there's just something so cool about it to me, like the closed mouth. I really love the bone color on the spines, and it's just like, this sculpt just really speaks to me. I don't really know what it is, but this thing is just so cool. And the Super X2 is a really cool addition as well. So yeah, Bandai Godzilla 1989. Alright, so back to some of the older stuff. We got the Bandai Movie Monster Series King Caesar. Specifically the Movie Monster Series version because, in my opinion, this is one of the best painted Bandai Godzilla figures probably ever. It's just like, it has so many colors on it, it's just so well painted. It's just, the colors make this figure. I have this Godzilla Island King Caesar, and this figure's really cool too. I actually like don't dislike this figure in any way anymore. I feel like I used to really rag on this figure because the bland paint job, but seeing it in person, it's like, it's kind of got its own charm to it because of the sort of matte colors. But this figure, it just doesn't even compare really. Like, this one just looks so much nicer, has so much more colors, and it just looks a lot nicer to me. And yeah, it's really hard to argue against that. This figure is cool, and it's one of the first uses of this sculpt, but since the vintage one, but who cares? But yeah, that's the Movie Monster Series King Caesar. That's mainly why it's on this list, is just because the paint job is really cool. Also another figure that was used in Monster Island Buddies. So yeah, I believe we're at number something. I actually don't know, but editing me will figure it out. So here we have the Bandai Memorial Box Godzilla 1984. Now, first of all, you might notice that there's a toothpick in his mouth, and you might be thinking, why is there a toothpick in his mouth? It's because mine, the jaw is like practically shut, so I use this to keep it open, and eventually when it decides to stop being closed, I will get rid of the toothpick. But for now, he just has that in his mouth as of now. And I just really like the way that this looks. Like, I like the dirtier look of this compared to the reissue that came out in 2021. And yeah, this thing is just really cool, and I really like the original Memorial Box 84. The sculpt on this is obviously superb, but there's not much else to say about it other than that it's like really cool. I don't really know. It's just like a cool Godzilla figure. That's kind of what this 11 through 20 spots are going to be, or just figures that I really like for no other particular reason besides the looks, the aesthetics. And this is just a really great looking figure. It just captures the 84 suit very well, and hopefully eventually I'll get one of the Cybot Godzilla figures. I don't know when I'll do that, but I will eventually get one of those because this is the only 84 vinyl I have in my collection, so I'm pretty satisfied with this one though. So yeah, Memorial Box Godzilla 1984. Pretty cool figure. Alright, so this is going to be a double whammy, and this is sort of cheating almost from what I just said previously about 84 and sort of aesthetics. These two. This is the Bandai Movie Monster Series Chainsaw Gigan from Final Wars from I believe this is 2024, and this is the Bandai Movie Monster Series Kiryu 2002, which was made in 2022, I believe. The reason why I say this is cheating is because if you own either of these figures, you may look at this and say, wow, that is not the figure that I own. And well, yeah, obviously it isn't, but it's because I painted both of these. And I really like the way that both of these came out, and it's kind of hard for me to not include them. It might be kind of weird to include my own customs on this list, but I really like these paint jobs, and this is one of the most highly anticipated Bandai vinyls ever for me personally, because I always wanted a 6-inch Chainsaw Gigan. I remember the one in 2018 when that was first leaked. I remember thinking and hoping that that was going to be a Chainsaw Gigan. I believe it was in 2019 actually, and it wasn't, and it was just a normal Gigan, and I was really disappointed. So when this figure came out, I was determined to make it look presentable, and I think it looks really great. I actually have a extra one that I can show you because I'm painting it for a commission. And so here are what the figures look like, the stock figure and then my repaint. So obviously you can see I really dulled up the silvers. I added black and then the silver and blue on top of it. And then the wings are fully painted, and so is the tail. So is the tail. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that freaking awesome? So yeah, if you want me to do this to your figure, let me know. For Kiryu, I actually did paint another one of these up for my friend Michael Fernandez, otherwise known as Rado Goji. And there's something really charming about the classic Kiryu sculpt, and that's kind of why I don't want the 2.0, and I'm pretty satisfied just with this one. I don't know, I just really like the way that I painted this. It just looks super clean, fully painted. I don't really know what it is. It just looks really cool to me, and it really brings this sculpt to life. And I feel like, you know, it's like something that a lot of people don't have. I think this is just cool, even though there's the 2.0 that is much better than this. But I don't know, I like the classic Kiryu sculpt, and that's kind of why I want the old 2003 one as well. I don't have that figure. I have this reissue one that's up there. I would really like to have the old sculpt because I don't know, I just think this is really cool. And I really like the way that these two look. I just think they look pretty clean. So yeah, you might think it's cheating. Yeah, I got my own customs on the list. So number 12 and 13 or something. One of those, I don't know. All right, and the last figure before we get into the ordered top 10 is the Bandai Showa Ghidorah. This is the original vintage one from the Godzilla collection in 1983. At least that's when the first original one was released. Pretty sure this is probably the 89 release. I'm pretty sure this is the 89 release, just because a lot of those were common to be detagged, and most of them kind of look like this, where they have sort of the bright gold. And this figure's really cool. It's just like, this is one of those figures that used to be super duper sought after back sort of like before 2019, around that time, before the 2020s. And now this figure's sort of forgotten because of the newer one down here, and also just because I guess people just don't care enough about Showa Ghidorah anymore. But this is just like one of the coolest figures I own, just because it is sort of part of history. If you saw my other figures, you know that the non-customs, the stock figures, are all tagged. This one is not, mainly because this thing is just super rare and expensive to get tagged. So I haven't gone out of my way to do that just yet, because I got this figure for pretty cheap. And yeah, this is just one of the coolest figures that I own, and I feel like not enough people think about this figure. I think it's really cool. And you know, this is just like it's just a historical figure. It's just a part of history, and that's just kind of why I love it so much. It's just like, you'll see when I talk about it later in a different video. It's just really cool. This is one of the first, you know, Godzilla toys ever. It's like one of those. It's not ever, but it's one of the first Bandai Godzilla toys ever. One of them, so pretty important in that regard. So yeah. That's number 11. All right, so moving on into the top 10. Finally, I know it's probably been like 10 minutes or even more into the video, and we're just getting into the top 10. But we have the Bandai Movie Monster Series Godzilla 1974. 74. This is the original release from 2001? 2003, I'm a LARPer. Anyway, this is what you think of when you think of Godzilla, maybe at least just Showa Godzilla. This is just sort of what you think of. This is what you kind of picture, in my opinion anyway. And that's why this figure's so special. This figure has been a part of a lot of like big fan-made projects like Godzilla Apex, just a bunch of recognizable stuff that this figure is a part of. So yeah, this figure is really cool. Godzilla 1974. Moving on to number 8. I have the Bandai Movie Monster Series Anguirus 1968 from 2001. And this is another really cool figure. This sculpt originated from the Godzilla collection, actually, and then into the Godzilla Island line, and then it made its way into the Movie Monster Series and Toho Kaiju series, but obviously we're talking about this one. And the reason why this figure is so special is just because, again, this is one of those more sought-after figures. This is probably the most sought-after Anguirus vinyl, and this one's just really awesome. The paint job is just really great on this figure. Much better than the Island and the Toho Kaiju one and even the vintage one, and that's why people wanted this one instead, because it has the really nice black highlights, the horns on the crest. I guess people call this a crest sometimes, but it's all painted really nicely, and yeah, this figure just looks great. And the reason why I put it so high is just it's one of those figures that like took a really long time to get, and it's just special because of that in a way, you know? It's just really cool figure, and it looks great. It's the definitive Anguirus figure to me, and yeah, it's just really cool. I think it's even better than the newer 72 Anguirus. I don't really like that figure as much, to be honest, so yeah, this is my Anguirus, bro. This is mine. All right, so for number 8, we got a big one. Got the Bandai Kaiser Ghidorah. So this is the Bandai 8-inch Kaiser Ghidorah, obviously from Godzilla Final Wars, and this is another one of those super sought after Godzilla vinyls, and there's nothing else I could really say about it other than it's just a really cool figure. This is one of those ones that took me a really long time to get, and I didn't get it until, I think it was before last G-Fest, might have been after, might have been before, I don't remember. I think it might have been before. I honestly couldn't tell you, but this is just a really lovely figure. This thing is just, it has presence, and it's just really freaking awesome. The reason why I have some other figures above this one, because you might think it's a number like number 8, that's kind of low, and it is kind of low, but that's because I feel like the size, even though it's cool, it's awesome that this figure is so much larger than everything else in your collection, I do feel like it inhibits your ability to appreciate it. I feel like it being bigger means that you're probably less likely to, you know, go out of your way to pick it off of your shelf, you know, sort of between all my figures, especially my collection where everything's sort of forced to be kind of crowded and next to each other and sort of intertwined. So this figure sort of falls victim to that, and I still really like it, obviously. It's just great. But some of these other figures on this list, it's a lot easier to pick them up for a day and just kind of look at them and, you know, appreciate them. This one is very awesome and it looks great, and I get to do that still, but, you know, not really a figure that is easy to play with, you know. So yeah, this figure's great. Obviously, just one of the most iconic Godzilla vinyls in general, just because of what it is. And yeah, this figure's really awesome. It took me a really long time to get it, so yeah. And maybe that's a part of it. Maybe the chase is a part of why I liked this figure so much. All right, so for number 7, we got the Memorial Box Godzilla 1967. And yeah, this is just like a cool figure. I don't really have anything else to say other than like, I just find this figure to be really underrated amongst people in the fandom. I think it's definitely getting its notoriety now because of the new Posing series, Godzilla 1967, which everybody thought was going to be something a little bit cooler that would be more usable as a standard Godzilla 1967, so a lot of people are looking to get this figure now. But I got this figure at my comic book store, local comic book store, and this thing is just really awesome. It is just a great figure. It looks phenomenal. It doesn't look perfectly like the suit, but that's intentional to sort of capture that Bandai style, and it just looks great. It just sort of softens up the really rough edges of the 67 suit and makes it look a lot more appealing, to be honest. And I love that, and I think it's really cool. I think the 65 and the 64, the 62, the 84 are all great figures as well, but this one just stands out to me because nobody really talks about it, and I think it's really awesome. And I like this 68 almost as much, but obviously it didn't make the list. Both of these are really great, and I really like the 67. It's just really cool. I love the spines. I love the green coloration. It's just so freaking cool. So yeah, number 7. And for number 6, we have the Bandai Vintage Hedorah. So this is sort of a special figure to me, and you might think, why is this sort of like goofy old figure so high up on the list? And that's because I just had a really strong affinity for this figure because when I was younger, watched a lot of Godzilla YouTube, as probably some of you have. But I got this, and you know, I watched a lot of G-Fest hauls back in the day, you know, when I wanted to go to G-Fest. And one of those G-Fest hauls was from Godzilla Fan Freaks, who still makes content today. And he got one of these in his G-Fest haul, and I remember just thinking that was the coolest Hedorah figure ever. I just thought this figure was just freaking awesome. I thought it was so cool, and I really wanted one for myself because I just loved the look of like the plastic eyes and just the pose, sort of the artsy, like almost cartoony look to the sludge effect. It just looks so cool to me, and I always wanted one. And I got one of these, I don't remember how long ago I got this figure, probably like 3 or so years ago, 2 or so years ago. This thing is just so cool to me. This thing is just so cool. And it's so surreal having one of these that I always wanted as a kid. A really dope figure, man. I just love this figure so much. Yeah, the effect that those plastic eyes give off is just incredible. It just looks so cool to me. Love this figure. So yeah, Bandai Vintage Hedorah. All right, so for number 5, we have the Bandai 2002 movie monster series, Titanosaurus. This is another one of those figures, sort of like King Caesar, where this figure is just so strongly carried by the looks. Nothing else really to say other than it just looks phenomenal. If King Caesar is number 2, this is the best painted Bandai vinyl there is. This is just the most gorgeous looking vinyl like ever. This thing is just so great. It's so vibrant, it's so colorful, there's so much detail, and I love sort of the chibified proportions of the figure, sort of like in the vinyl style. It just looks really awesome. And yeah, this is just one of those really special figures. I got this with my 74 back in the day, and this is just really awesome figure. The early 2000s Bandai vinyls are just all stellar. So yeah, Titanosaurus. Moving on to number 5, we finally circle back to the 8-inch Bandai vinyls. This is the 8-inch Godzilla 2004, and the reason why this is so high up for me personally is because I feel like this figure is another one of those that is super underrated. I feel like nobody talks about this figure, and the reason why I say that is because I feel like this is the best Godzilla 2004 sculpt from Bandai, and I would say that's including SH Monster Arts, in my opinion. This figure just gets everything right. I think it's better than the pink tag vinyl. There are relatively subtle differences, but this figure just captures everything so perfectly. I love the 8-inch scale of this figure. It's not like perfect because it does have that sort of greenish yellow claws like the 6-inch one does, but I think this figure is still really awesome despite sort of the weird coloration for these. It's just, I don't know. I always thought that this one was cooler. Like, there's just nothing wrong with this figure in the same way that I don't feel like there's anything wrong with the 2002 Godzilla, and this one's just more special to me because it's Godzilla Final Wars, and also just because nobody talks about this one because everybody talks about the 6-inch one. I don't know, this one is just so cool to me. This is like the perfect Godzilla figure, like in my eyes. So 8-inch Final Wars. All right, so now we're getting into the top 3, and this one is sort of a curveball maybe. The Bandai Movie Monster Series Mechagodzilla 1975 from 2002. And the reason why I say this is a curveball is just because, like, I feel like everything on this list has been relatively special, and there's nothing, like, special about this figure, other than, like, sort of, like, perceived value, maybe, and, like, the sculpt is just really nice. It just, again, one of those figures that visually just looks really cool, but I don't know. There was something that just like so much cooler to me about the matte paint job of this one compared to the G-Store release that I have over there, the battle damaged one from like 5 years ago now. I think it was released in 2021. That figure is great and it looks cool, and I think arguably more definitive than this figure. But there's just something so special about this figure to me. I don't know what it is. I got this at G-Fest last year and I got it for a crazy price. I got it for like $25, and thanks to my friend MarioFan0009 who pointed it out to me. This thing is just really awesome, and I'm so glad I have this one. I don't know what it is. I think I talked about this a little bit with the 74, but this is another one of those figures that just sort of brings you back to the older days, you know, the nostalgic times of Godzilla YouTube. Maybe that's a little corny, But this figure is just really cool to me because it sort of reminds me of that time. Not only that, but also just because I think it looks really cool. I think the matte paint job just gives him a lot of aura. I think this figure is just this thing is just tough, dude. This thing is cool. And the 75 sculpt, this figure is just like perfect. The 75 Mechagodzilla sculpt is just perfect. Really a lot cooler than the 74. This thing is just so cool. So yeah, Mechagodzilla 75, you can't really go wrong with this figure. It just looks great in my opinion, so it's the reason why I have it so high. And let's wrap it up. Number 2, we have the Bandai 8-inch GMK King Ghidorah. And to put it bluntly, the reason why I have this figure so high, for one, GMK is like my favorite Godzilla movie next to -1. I just think it's the best Bandai King Ghidorah figure. I just think this is like just a really perfect figure to me, and I think it sort of accentuates the design that the suit doesn't really do, the design itself doesn't really do, mainly because it's smaller. But I think this figure being in the 8-inch scale just sort of ups it a level just a little bit to me, and I think it's super cool. It just looks really imposing next to 6-inch figures, and I think this design is probably my favorite King Ghidorah design, and it just looks super cool. You can't go wrong with this figure. It is just so cool. I love like the variety of the heads. Like this one's closed, this one's open, this one's slightly open. And yeah, this thing also has a humongous footprint. It's bigger than Kaiser Ghidorah. It's bigger than my Showa Ghidorah. I think it's even bigger than the Mecha King Ghidorah, the vintage one. This thing is just huge. It is ginormous. So yeah, it may not be super tall, but it makes up for that in the length, in the width. So yeah, this figure is really cool. One of my favorites. Not much else to say other than it's just like a dope figure that represents one of my favorite monsters, GMK King Ghidorah. All right, last up we have the Bandai 8-inch Chainsaw Gigan. Gigan is probably my favorite Godzilla monster outside of GMK Baragon, which didn't actually make this list. Just I don't know. I didn't really think it needed to. This figure is another one that's really special. I got the tag signed by Don Fry, who is just a really cool dude, and obviously plays Captain Gordon in Godzilla Final Wars. But this figure is just really awesome. This is another one of those that I really wanted as a kid, and I ended up getting it at G-Fest in 2023. And it's just a really cool figure. There's not much else to say about it, again, other than it being really cool. One thing I'd say I wouldn't love is that the vinyl on this figure is super soft. Like it like squishes and bends. It's just like he's floppy. Like it is the only qualm I have with this figure, but otherwise to me this thing is just perfect. I think this sort of goes to show like it was super hard to make this list. Like I wanted to include everything on my shelf at that point because I don't really get stuff that I don't like. I know that sounds kind of redundant, like why would you get something that you don't like, but I don't know. I like most of the things that I put in my collection because I think it's purposeful, and I think like you should also feel the same way. You should have a really hard time coming up with the top 10 favorite figures or top 10 favorite Bandai vinyls or top 10 favorite SH Monster Arts or top 10 favorite Safubi. It should be really hard to do that kind of thing because at the end of the day, you should buy what you want to buy, and you should, you know, put stuff in your collection that you think is purposeful to you. So yeah, at the end of the day, this is a hobby, and I just wanted to show off my top 20 or so. Might have been less. I'm not really sure if I counted correctly. So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope that you guys enjoyed this super long-winded video. Be prepared for G-Fest 2026 this year. It's coming up in about a month. So yeah, be ready. Be there or be square. This is Epic Toxie signing out. Goodbye.